y'all. Welcome to my shop. If you want your pieces to have a shiny surface and a silky smooth finish, let me show you how I use the Beall buffing system. Maybe it'll help you with your wood turning. So today let's dive into buffing, an often misunderstood process and one that I consider essential to your wood turning. It just turns a good item into a beautiful item with just a buttery smooth feel. Today we're going to talk about the different buffing techniques, buffing equipment, and buffing compounds. That is Tripoli, white diamond, carnauba wax, and possibly Bonex. One of the most popular buffing systems out there is the Beall buffing system, produced by Lee Valley. I like this 3-on-1 where you have 3 8-inch wheels mounted on this arbor with a Morse taper, because I've got this mini lathe I started with, and I can keep this mounted all the time. And I find that this works for most everything I buff. I don't turn really large objects, and I have no problem buffing. This is an 8-inch bowl. I don't normally make bowls much larger than about 9 inches, and I have no problem getting in there on the outside of the bowl, 9-inch, even a 10-inch bowl. A less expensive and quite frankly not quite as good as a PSI system. They're readily available for a little less money. These have 70 ply. The Penn State version has 50 ply. This is a 18-inch mandrel. The Penn State has a 16-inch mandrel. They're both good. I think you'll be happy with either one of them. In the UK, Chestnut Products has something similar. I'm not sponsored. This is just a good system. I'll have links to some of the products I demonstrated in this video in the video description. A lot of folks would prefer to mount their wheels one at a time on their lathe using a mandrel like this. Most of them typically have a Morse taper. Unfortunately, when you use a Morse taper, you need to use a drawbar. Let me show you. The drawbar allows you, going through the spindle, through the headstock, allows you to safely mount the taper so it won't rattle, it won't possibly rattle loose. And that's a good thing, because if it rattles loose, it could come flying off or make a damage to your Morse taper on your spindle. So they mount the wheel that just threads on. This is a 5/16 inch thread. In this case, I'm using a 4-inch wheel. Some people find the 4-inch wheel a little less aggressive. You have to turn it faster. With an 8-inch wheel, you need to go about 1,400 RPM, somewhere in that vicinity. I wouldn't go any faster. With a 4-inch wheel, you only need to go you need to go faster to get the same surface speed, about 2,800 RPM. Now, one of the advantages of having a 4-inch wheel is it allows you to, like this, without having to purchase additional products, bowl buffs. In this case, this is a 3-inch bowl buff. They also come in 2 inches and 4 inches. I think this is a good size, but some people prefer the smaller or larger. It depends on what you're turning. Here's an example of the smaller 2-inch buff compared to the 3-inch buff. Each of these, with a Beall buff system, they're color coded, so you can't. It's hard to screw them up. The red is for Tripoli, the white is for white diamond, and the yellow is for the wax. You don't want to cross-contaminate them, and because they have different fabric for each one, you do want to keep them lined up and use them properly. The first one, the Tripoli, is all linen. It's a little harder. Then you go to the white diamond version, and it has half linen and half flannel. It's a little bit softer. And then when you get to the wax wheel, it's 100% soft flannel for applying the wax. When I'm buffing on the lathe with the 4-inch wheels or the bowl buffs, actually, I don't prefer to use this because of the problem of having to install that drawbar. What I've done is simply made a threaded holder that just simply threads on, and I tapped this. It doesn't even have a threaded insert. It's just tapped with a 5/16 inch threaded tap. And once it's threaded on there, it holds it just fine. And then that tap in this is a hardwood. These happen to be cherry. You know, it'll hold it just fine. And I find that just easier for me to deal with. So the way this works is that you transfer a very small amount of the compound. In this case, I'm opening up a bar that I've had for over 15 years because I was still using the first bar, because you use so little of it. At least you should use very little of it. Let me put my mask back on. In an earlier video review, I introduced you to Basecamp's masks. Anytime you use these buffing materials, you definitely need to wear something to protect your lungs, because it's really nasty stuff to have those sharp, very fine abrasive products get in your lungs. They sent me a follow-up to another version of the mask. They've got basically two versions of masks. They're phasing out this one that has these soft loops, but the one I had before had Velcro underneath and a Velcro over above, which was a little more secure, and it was great for if you're wearing it all day long and you're not taking it on and off, and it gives a more secure fit. But for a lot of folks doing just casual wearing it on and having to take it off for brief periods of time, the one with the loops on it that they sent me tend to be a little bit more, I found for me, a little bit more comfortable. These are the ones that had cloth loops, and some people really like those, but a number of people reported they preferred something a little different, something with elastic they can adjust, and that's what they came up with. So, you know, when you put it on first like this, put the loops on, and then you just take the Velcro around back. You're going to press down the loops over your nose so you get a nice tight feel. And the elastic, now, personally, I have not found a lot of difference between the ones with the soft loops and the adjustable ones, but intuitively I would say over the long term you're going to be better off, I think most people, if it's comfortable for you, with the elastic that's adjustable, because you can get the perfect fit, and we know everybody doesn't have the same size head. So anyway, I've been playing with this, wearing these products for a while during a number of operations in my shop, from using the table saw, the band saw, or sanding, and I find it very comfortable. And one of the things that I like about this, the M Plus, I get confused with the model number, sorry, but where it's easy to just, if you've got it on like this and you want to take it off for a brief while, you just release those loops and just pull it down, and you can put it back on real easily. And this is a little more easy. So the use case is for people that are wearing it for short terms, or you're wanting to take it off for a little while but still leave it around your face. If you're interested in these products, I'll have a link in the video description, and if you use the code, you'll get a 10% discount. I'm not paid I'm not getting paid for this review, but I'm happy with this product, so I'm happy to let y'all get a 10% discount as well. Again, with 4-inch wheels, you're going to get your speed up to about 2,400. You're just going to hit it lightly, just a couple of seconds. That's all it takes. And it transfers the Tripoli compound, which is a fairly fine abrasive mixed into a tallow base. It transfers it to the wheel. You don't have to apply very high pressure to get that nice shine. Now the Tripoli has a grit equivalent to sand abrasive paper of approximately 600 to 800. You still have to prepare your finish, but it will take. You don't have to go up to about, say, 320 to sand, and it will take it up to an equivalent of 600 to 800. Now, if you use too much, and like I say, you only put it on there for a little bit and use it a little and use often, you can clean up. And sometimes you need to clean up when you've been using a proper amount, because you still have some on the wheel and it's crusted. You've got two approaches. The original instructions said wrap a piece of 60 to 80 grit paper around a hard wheel and just hold it up against it. Now it's counterintuitive. You would think that would allow grit to get in there, but apparently that's not the case. What I tend to use though is I just use the hard edge of a board to get off any excess.
And if you like to spend money, you can buy a commercial rake. They do sell these things, but it's not needed.
So if I have several items to do, I'm going to go ahead and take them one at a time, use them against Tripoli, then I'm going to remove that and go to the white diamond wheel. If I'm not using my 3-in-1 that I showed earlier. With the white diamond wheel, you use even less white diamond than you use Tripoli. And again, the secret is use a little bit and use it often so you don't overdo it. The Tripoli is a finer abrasive, and it takes it up to the equivalent of about 1200 to 1500 grit, which is really fine. It also removes any residue left by the Tripoli wheel with this tallow compound that still might be on the surface. So it helps clean that up. You don't have to wipe off between the bowl between grits. So let me show you how much you use with white diamond. It doesn't take much. And that might be plenty. Now when you use this wheel, you always want to have these sharp edges down. You want to use it in the lower quadrant so it doesn't catch. You never turn it like this to catch an edge. Otherwise it can send it across the room. But normally that's not a problem if you use it properly. It helps if you can do it with the grain like this. This is cross grain. Let it go a little bit. And the last stop is to use a carnauba wax, one of the hardest waxes known to man, and it'll really put a hard shine on it that's long lasting. However, some people are not happy with carnauba wax. They claim their experience is that if the object is passed around and used a lot, it has a tendency to get fingerprints on it. In addition, they feel like that if it gets any water on it, it creates water spots on your bowl. Personally, I have not had that experience, but I won't discount that that's not a possibility since some users don't use this. They would prefer to use a different product. They'd prefer to use a microcrystalline wax such as this Renaissance. Sometimes I use both. I'll use the carnauba and then I'll put it and buff it, and then I'll use a very fine coat of Renaissance wax. It's not a problem, and again, you're going to take off the white diamond wheel and replace it with the wax wheel because you don't want to cross-contaminate. I'll put this in a bag appropriate to the compound. So my Tripoli wheel goes into a Tripoli bag so as to not contaminate the products. The compounds, I'll keep them in a separate bag as well. The Renaissance wax, which is fairly pricey, is a microcrystalline wax made from petroleum, and you put a very, very light coat on it, and it doesn't shine as much as the carnauba, so it might bring the shine down just a little bit, but it resists fingerprints. I wouldn't get too concerned about cross-contamination on that wax wheel if you use some of this. Again, you're going to apply this very lightly to the actual object that you're going to be buffing. You're not going to put it on the wheel like you would the carnauba wax. So the object of buffing and polishing is to make the rough surface into a smooth one, and of course each workpiece will be in a different condition, so it might need different procedures. But imagine the surface magnified thousands of times, and after you sand it originally, it's going to look like jagged mountains and valleys, but by repeating the abrasion to the finer grits of sandpaper and then eventually to buffing with Tripoli and then white diamond, you're going to wear those mountains down until they're old soft rolling hills. Then they're they will not dissipate the light, but they're going to actually reflect it, and it's a reflection that makes the buffing part appear very shiny. Now for some folks, especially pen turners and folks that use a CA finish like this Parfix finish, you'll skip the Tripoli and you'd skip the white diamond, and you're going to use a different product that's made in Great Britain called Vonex. I think it's Great Britain. It's hard to find in the U.S., but it might be worth trying to seek out. It is much more aggressive than the other grits. The Vonex has a grit in the 1500 to 2000 range. It's more aggressive than the Tripoli or the white diamond. I got this piece from Mark Soleil, and it's a great product for folks that are using resins, polishing plastics, and like I say, CA finish products, especially pens. That's a great product.
Now it's time to deal with some question and answers from previous videos that might clarify some of these points that I might have left fuzzy. One viewer writes, you mentioned the need to finish the part before treating it with a Beall system. However, on the Beall site in their videos, they apparently buff the piece directly onto bare wood after properly sanding it. I guess it keeps a more natural look to the wood. So what is it really? Is it a matter of preference? I buffed some bare wood as a test and the results look quite good regarding the shiny aspect. However, I recently bought the buffing system and treated a bowl that I had, as far as I can remember, previously done the finish with lacquer. The result after the buffing with a compound Tripoli gave a gummy finish in addition to incorporating lints from the wheel. The white diamond did not improve the situation. However, note that I had been careful not to overload either the Tripoli wheel nor the white diamond wheel, and I had treated the wheels with sandpaper as recommended to get rid of the lints. I buffed at 1750. Was I too aggressive? Pressure on the wheel, or are there some finished products to avoid? Should we limit ourselves to oil such as walnut? Thanks for your advice. My response, raw wood will never look good long term with just buffing. The shine will go away quickly without a finish. I think John Beall's video focus was on his buffing supplies and can be misleading, but I think if you look at the written instructions, it's clear. Use a finish before buffing. Sounds like you either fail to let your lacquer cure, or you press too hard or too long and burned through it. Another viewer says, are you buffing between coats of the antique oil? No. You don't need to buff between coats of finish. The buffing is the final finishing the finish, so to speak. Another one, any thoughts on using the system on boards finished with mineral oil and beeswax? I occasionally make charcuterie boards. I'm wondering if skipping straight to the canuba wax might work. I believe it's food safe, but also worried I might gum up the wheels or contaminate them with the mineral oil and beeswax. I don't really need a big shine on them, but it could look nice. My response was I would not buff mineral oil and beeswax finish. It also penetrates better than canuba, which is the goal on cutting boards, penetration. Shiny won't last long. Just replenish the beeswax mixture when the wood looks dull. Another viewer noted that canuba is the hardest natural wax. Microcrystalline wax can be harder, but it's an artificial petroleum derivative product. Chestnut Products, that sells both canuba and microcrystalline waxes, claim that you can use them interchangeably on the same buff. The difference is that the microcrystalline is a paste that is applied to the workpiece and allowed to dry before buffing. What's your opinion on that? Well, I don't use Renaissance wax too much on items I'm buffing, but I always did apply it to the piece, not to the wheel. Always just do a brief wipe with a cloth or paper towel onto the product, or onto the wood turning. I'll have to try the buffer. I don't see any problem with the slight blending of the two waxes that should occur. I do not think Renaissance leaves as much of a shine as canuba, but it's far more fingerprint resistant. Another viewer asked, do you need to wipe off the bowl between wheels to avoid cross-contamination? No. The white diamond actually cleans off the Tripoli residue. Another viewer, great videos, I'm always learning from you. Well, I appreciate that, Gary. Recently I've become interested in buffing wood turnings to get a better shine. In watching your videos I get more confused. Is buffing, this goes back to the earlier question, is buffing for unfinished wood as a finished system in itself, or can you buff over a finish? I picked up in one of your videos that buffing a friction polish finish is not a good idea. I'm searching for what might be the best durable finish for utensil handles, things that get frequent use. The more I look, the more confused I get. you have any suggestions. Gary, buffing is for a finish. Buffing raw wood will make it shine for a while, but no finish filling the pores, it will quickly fade with use. I use Minwax antique oil for just about everything. This is no response since Minwax has discontinued their antique oil. Since it's a penetrating oil, it gets in the pores and you can burn through it like surface finishes like poly, or you can't burn through it like surface finishes, film finishes like poly or lacquer. It may take several coats to build up a shine with antique oil, but I'm rarely in a hurry. A friction polish like Mylan's or Hut Crystal is a shellac-based product and will normally get a good shine on the lathe, while you're putting on the finish. Another viewer, Mike, is this the way you do your Danish oil finish? Buffing it out in 3 stages, and when you apply your Danish oil, how long do you normally wait till you start the buffing process? Yes, that's the way I do it, all 3 products. You have to wait until the finish cures, and that depends on the finish you're using. It might be days, it might be weeks. Wait until there's no longer a smell. For some finishes, if you try to buff it before it cures, you're going to get a gummy mess. Another viewer says, Mike, I make a lot of small lidded boxes and some goblets using Captain Eddie's formula for friction polish. And I was going to try other things like the Danish oil you use, and I know I'll need a buffing system. Do you know how well this would do on finish polish? Same answer as before. If you're doing a friction polish on the lathe, you're going to get shiny. If you try to buff it after that, you're going to get rid of some of the finish and therefore the shine. Another viewer asks, if your bowl or hollow form has a bark inclusion or a knot, how do you stop the buffing compound from getting lodged in the inclusion? It's not much of a problem with Tripoli because of the darker color, but if you're going to be buffing items that have bark inclusions or things that will catch the compound, I would avoid using the white diamond. It might get trapped. Now, some folks have complained about the white diamond on walnut getting embedded. I've not had that problem. By using an antique oil, it seals the wood, fills the pores. It doesn't, and you build up coats. It doesn't catch the white diamond. In an earlier video, I showed using and recommending even latex gloves to make it easier to hold on to the piece to keep it from flying away. And someone wondered what the gloves were made of, which I said in the video it was latex. And this individual says, I've been told it's dangerous to wear gloves around a lathe. Maybe fabric wheels won't grab the gloves, but why chance it? Well, they're not going to grab the gloves, and if they do, they're not going to hurt anything. It might rip the gloves, but I think sometimes some people tend to overthink things. I don't see any danger in using latex gloves. Sometimes as we get older, our feeling seems to be less and less on how much pressure. So I haven't been using latex gloves lately and had any problems. But if you have a problem holding on to things, I'd say use latex gloves. I demonstrated using the 100 grit paper cleaning the wheel. Somebody asked that if you use it, isn't there a risk of grit particles sticking to the wheel and scratching the bowl? Well, logic would lead to that conclusion on the sticking grits, but John Beall, who created the system, seemed to feel like it worked just fine, and he was a very systematic engineer kind of person, and I'm sure he tested it, and he demonstrated it that way in his video. So if you're interested in making small wood turnings shiny, check out my video that shows how to use friction polish, and you certainly don't want to buff it. You're going to finish it on the lathe. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It tells the YouTube algorithm that they need to push it out further to other like-minded wood turners, so that would help me out a lot. If you're a visitor, I appreciate you writing in the comments the one thing you really got out of this video. And y'all remember, stay safe. Come on back, you hear?